What's going on, everybody? It's Brent0331. Appreciate you guys joining in tonight. So we got a small panel. We don't have a specific topic because there's a lot of shit going on in the world, and we figured everything we could do tonight would be shooting from the hip, and it'd still be entertaining. So with that being said, we're going to bring in our crew here. First and foremost, we got Will, one Shepherd instructor, also has a law enforcement background. He was a United States Marine in the early 2000s. Will, thanks for jumping on tonight, brother.
Thanks for having me, Brent.
All right, next, no stranger to the stream. We got Les, Pegasus Test. It's his YouTube channel. Be sure to check him out. Les is the United States Marine in the early 90s. Also has his own logistics company as well as tactical training company. Be sure to check out his YouTube channel, Pegasus Test. Les, thanks for jumping on tonight.
Good to be here, Brent.
All right, and lastly, we got a somewhat new addition. We got Logan. He's our intel expert. So we're going to kick this off. Well, actually, let me preface that. Logan was a staff sergeant in the United States Army. He had several combat deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. So, Logan, thanks for jumping on tonight, brother.
Thanks for having me, brother.
All right. So, as always, when we have one of our intel guys on the brief, we're going to get a intel update. So, Logan, if you can just spin us up with what's going on, latest on what's going on the ground in Ukraine.
Yeah, in the last week, there's been some pushes by the Russian forces in Sinkivka, which is in Kharkiv Oblast. It's about an hour east of the main city. It's by Kupiansk. And the Russians, like I said last week, are trying to push to the Oskil River. I think their intent is going to be to put the Ukrainians' backs to the river and hope that they cross the river and that they can take over the rest of the river to the north and south of those positions. The biggest push this last week was a Russian advance near Avdiivka, which is near Donetsk city. And in that area, they launched a large convoy of armored vehicles against Ukrainian positions. They tried to push to the south and north of Avdiivka, and they lost about 3,000 men and about 34 tanks, which is confirmed by Oryx. I think that they gained probably, 34 square kilometers along that area of the front, and they took significant losses, but they made, I think what they're trying to do all along the front, the southern front, the eastern front, and the northeastern front, is to conduct spoiling attacks because they know the Ukrainians have one last chance to do a push in the next couple of weeks. And after these next couple of weeks, the rain and the mud will become untenable for offensive operations. So you'll probably see offensive spoiling attacks from the Russians in the next 7 to 10 days.
Awesome. Anybody got any questions for Logan on the intel update?
Logan, do you think that after these spoiling attacks, things will just stalemate until the ground freezes? And if so, when do you anticipate that happening?
Last year, about mid-November was when we saw things taper off. If you look at the last winter, things are kind of following like a formula, especially with like Russian air attacks, especially their long-range assets. So you've seen a lot of like shorter range Shaheds and stuff like that hitting targeted areas of the Kupiansk bridges and stuff like that for strategic reasons, and also the grain ports along the Dnipro and areas around Odessa, just to shut down the grain trade. Last year was very similar logistically as far as them using their missile and long-range assets. They stopped using them about a week and a half ago when we saw that long-range attacks on Kharkiv that we saw in the center of the city. And since then, there's been no big bombers launched from the from the far west and the far east of the fronts, and it's being assessed by British intelligence and American intelligence that they're halting operations until the winter because they started using anti-satellite missiles because their stockpiles of other cruise missiles were running lower. And now that those stockpiles of anti-satellite missiles have gone, they're starting to go back to using S-300 missiles as well. What they're probably going to do is save up for the winter so they can strike more infrastructure targets deeper inside Ukraine and just continue their terror attacks on the civilian population. probably see the ground freeze around the same time this year. It's pretty consistent.
I got a question for you. So obviously, when the Ukrainians had an offensive push, they ran into a lot of Russian prepared positions. Anti-tank trenches, mines, really stalled up the Ukrainian offensive. Have their Ukrainians prepared defenses, and have they? I'm assuming they obviously have, but to what degree have they developed them as much as the Russians? Are they more vulnerable for those counteroffensive from the Russians? In your opinion, what do you think?
It's not just my opinion, but the opinion of other strategic commentators and other guys who are way more versed in what has been going on for the last 10 years in that area of Donetsk and Kharkiv and the northeastern region. The Russians, if you looked at the Russians during the spring and early summer, they conducted these operations where they, like the same as now, they conducted spoiling attacks, and then their second line guys were busy building these defenses in the south and the east. They had about, since April or May to build up these defensive works, but the Ukrainians have had almost 9 years to build up areas such as when I was talking about Avdiivka. When they're trying to surround this area of the city in Avdiivka, they want to open up the road that goes to the west to some other more kind of like small cities like Bakhmut, similar size to that. You'll see Pokrovsk is another city in that region that has been turned into a fortress, and all the little villages to the east of that, between that and Avdiivka, have been turned into, literal fortresses. And if they try to take Avdiivka in this winter or in the following months, it's going to be a heavy cost, just like Bakhmut, because these areas have been, literally like reinforced bunkers, buildings that have been turned into fortresses. If you look at the old Soviet-style buildings, they're usually about 5 stories tall. The reason for that is they had a rule that if it was over 6 stories tall, they had to put an elevator in it. So you imagine all these 5-story buildings, these tenement blocks, and they're like literal fortress walls around these cities. And they've been hardened and turned into curtain walls, layers and layers. And these positions have been strengthened by Zelensky. When he came into power, he ordered that more fortifications be built in these areas. And it's going to be a significant, not just counting the outside lines, which is like trench works and stuff like that, but inside the networks of the cities, there's significant fortifications, and I can't say exactly what they are for reasons, but you can imagine.
Do you anticipate any side trying to do an offensive during the winter with the ground frozen?
We saw it when the full scale started, the ground was plenty frozen in February to conduct offensive operations. They have been using roads, and roads have really played a huge part in this war because logistics can't stop, and bodies, ammunition, food, supplies, they have to go in constantly to these areas that are focal points for attacks and defense. And if you can't have a road into an area, if you look at, like I was just giving this example of Avdiivka, the reason that Avdiivka has to be taken is because it controls the main route to the west, towards the Dnipro. And as long as those roads are open, then they can be resupplied. It's kind of like on a smaller scale of World War II, when you had these large logistical networks that were going for tens of thousands of kilometers. In these cases, the logistics nodes that are coming from Poland and Romania and stuff like that all end in these areas. And the Russians can try to reach out and touch stuff with rockets and artillery, but as long as these roads remain out of range of those indirect fires, then they can continue to be supplied. Around November is when the ground freezes. The temperatures are actually pretty low right now, for record. and there's been a continual amount of rain this last couple of weeks. So I've been talking to my friends that are over there, and they've been telling me that they're already coming up. They're already having cold weather injuries, immersion, like trench foot type stuff, like those kind of injuries. It's probably going to get worse, but I mean, if they're already coming up against that kind of rain and mud situation, then I mean, it can only be a matter of time before offensive operations halt.
All right. Will, you got anything before we close out the update on Ukraine?
No, it's just a lot of good information for some of us laymen that aren't as deep in intel as he is, but good info for everybody.
All right, fellas. So there's a lot going on in the world. Obviously, Israel and Gaza are pretty hot and heavy in the news. So I don't know if we want to kick this off with that or go on to something else. Republicans still haven't selected the House Speaker, so we got that. We got wide open borders. There's a there's a lot to digest. So I'm just gonna throw Les under the bus. Unless you got it, go ahead.
All right, on to that grenade I go. All right, so I'll hit the other war that's out there. The big development happening over there that I've noticed about this conflict between Israel and Hamas is the lack of response from the Arab world. I've noticed the fact that the vitriol's been there, but words are words. From what I can tell in open sources, I don't see any massive mobilization of Arab forces. And the Egyptians are very steadfast. They are not allowing any Palestinians into their territory. Israel is strangely slow in its response. And what I mean by that is normally a week after something happened, they would have done a full-scale invasion, done a lot more damage than they have done. It tells me they're being highly selective. That's probably due to the fact of the hostages that are taken, which the count I saw today just before coming on board is 199 confirmed hostages. And Israel is preparing to do a ground assault, or at least going through all the machinations of doing one, but they have not yet. And we've already passed several deadlines that pundits and experts have put out there. Also, up on the northern border, while they are taking some shelling from Hezbollah forces and hitting back at them, nothing, any major assault coming across that way, which to me is surprising because I thought for sure Hezbollah would pile on with Hamas drawing so much Israeli attention, but they're strangely not doing anything, or at least not doing what I anticipated.
Well, I think Logan pointed out last stream that they have to call up a metric fuck ton of reservists, and then you got to remember, like, those dudes need to get trained up, and they're about to step foot in probably one of the biggest urban warfare we've seen since probably Stalingrad or the fall of Berlin. So I would imagine that there's a lot of training going on right now and preparation. Plus, they gotta do preparatory fires on everything that they're gonna be taken in that city.
Yeah. It's just when you look back at the previous Arab-Israeli wars, discounting 66 and 54, where they were the aggressors in that case, but 73, they were launching right in, almost headlong into attacks. And this time they seem to be much more reserved in what we're doing. You might be right. It might be the slow speed of their call up, which that in and of itself is interesting and tells you about the state of the IDF, if that's the case.
Well, being out in the field for the last week, I'm a little behind on the subject, but as we've been talking and looking, with the slow start, I hope it's not outside influences already giving them rules of things they don't want to see. I've heard conflicting reports that they're trying to get as many civilians out because their plan is to go in and just level the place and have to fight, and they know that their enemy forces in the Gaza like to use human shields, and they're trying to keep the casualties down low. And to your point about the metric fuck ton of people they're having to call up, definitely from what it's seeing, every swinging dick out there they're getting called up, and they're showing up, and they're ready to fight to defend their borders and their people.
What you got, Logan?
from what I've been seeing, the reason for the hesitation of the Israelis doesn't really have anything to do with any of their like planning process. It's because once they call these reservists up and they actually had them in the assembly areas outside of Gaza, they quickly realized, and I'm guessing it was the commanders, that these reservists do not have the training, they don't have the equipment, and they literally said they didn't have enough uniforms and weapons for everyone. So, like Les said, the state of the IDF, comparatively to the 1970s and even the 1980s, as far as their mobilizations, which everybody thought that they were very good at, has shown that they have really let things go. And as far as their organization and their training, they are not ready for this. And I think that that's becoming more and more apparent as they conduct their rehearsals and they conduct their pre-training and pre-fire arrangements. If you look at the Israeli army, they're not like anything that you've seen since the 1960s. They don't have any combined armed units. They don't have any armored brigades that are mixed with infantry. They don't have any armored reconnaissance forces. They don't have any heavy infantry mechanized forces that are paired with tanks. They have brigades, and these brigades are either infantry or they're armored. That's it. And their idea is that because they're such a small country that they can get away with this type of organization. But Brent, you remember going through training and seeing what it was like to integrate with tanks going into urban combat. And if you've never worked with tanks before, how do you think that's going to go? The Israelis, I really don't envy them at all, especially the leadership. Netanyahu has put himself in the position where he has promised to protect the Israeli people, and he has promised a response. And that response has to be proportionate to his political pressure. His political pressure right now is that he has to do something. He's almost trapped. He's trapped in the decision of going into Gaza City and doing something. If he doesn't do it, he won't politically survive, and neither will any of this unification government that's just formed under his leadership. 30,000 guys, I feel like is not any. 300,000 men, even marginally trained or badly trained guys, is not enough men to go in and take a city that size, especially with the amount of people that are there. And I can think that if they go in and try to level the city with bunker busters and try to hit the tunnels and everything like that, they've already been warned by the other Arab countries. And maybe the Arab countries aren't making a big stink about it right now, but the Iranians have said that if you go into Gaza, there will be consequences. And as soon as they issued these warnings, there were fires from Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Maybe that was just to give them a taste, but it's not just the Iranians; it's the Turks and the Russians have talked about doing a convoy, a protected armed convoy to Gaza, to the ports there, for humanitarian reasons. But that puts Russian warships in direct, line of sight of the Israeli fires. And of course, the carrier strike groups that are going to be in the region very soon. There is a very high chance for things to get out of control, and I believe that the Israelis can't not go in, but they're realizing very quickly that they probably shouldn't.
Yeah, I don't. Sorry, Les, were you going to go?
No, I was just digesting everything Logan said. Go ahead, Brent.
Well, I was just going to say I don't see any way that they don't. I mean, like you just said, Logan, like they have to act, right? Their national pride's on the line. They were attacked like they haven't been since the previous Yom Kippur War. They have to get retribution, and they have to go in there. They have to clear out. The question is how the hell they do it. It looks like they've cut Gaza in half. Like they're telling the civilians, like, hey, you had this amount of time to flee the northern part. So what does that mean? Are they gonna have an LOA, right down the middle of Gaza, and they're only going to clear the northern part. And then what? And then, then you can tell the civilians to go north, and then I don't even know how that's even going to be possible. So I'm very interested to see how they work this piece and pull it off. But whether they're trained or ready to go or not, I mean, they're going to have to go. They're going to have to do something. And then, the Iranians, we'll see what they do. Obviously, they fund and support Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is a lot more structured and bigger than Hamas. And we'll see what happens there. So the Israelis have to worry about that, but at the same time, I don't think there's any way that something's going to stand between them and pushing into Gaza.
Absolutely inclined to agree with you on that one, Brent. They have to go. They've said they have. This would have been like when we sent 2 major amphibious task force to Iraq and then went, no, we're coming back. No, you reach a point you have to go. So I think they will, whether they call it a protective reaction strike or something like that, or a limited operation or maybe a special military operation. They'll go in and do something. Be interesting what something is. The other thought I have is maybe what they're doing at the rate rockets are coming in, they have to be depleting Iron Dome munitions at a rapid rate, that maybe they're waiting for a bigger stockpile knowing what Hezbollah can throw at them. That's just throwing ideas out there as food for thought. I don't think that whatever they do in Gaza, I don't think it's going to be a permanent thing compared to what they've done in the past. I think it'll be more of a limited thing. Like if they go in there and they occupy it, it'll be a short period of time, not a major one. And maybe that's the ultimate goal, fuck things up so much in Gaza that they have to focus on rebuilding their forces and don't have time to attack Israel.
And they could also be waiting on the many, many, many sailors and Marines that have left from my neck of the woods that are heading that way too. So being in the Hampton Roads area, there is a lot of
ceasefire. I don't know, somebody's not on mute or something. There's like links getting loaded or something. You guys hear that?
It's all over the news. I mean, I'm just saying they could be waiting for outside. Once Iran started telling them that, if they go into Gaza, there's going to be a lot of earthquakes and all, they could be waiting for help. Or they could, like I said, they could just be doing the train up thing and making sure that they know once they go in. I know there's a lot of concern about if they go into Gaza, are they going to keep Gaza? Are they going to pull back like they have in the past? From what their country, or, from their leadership is saying, they're going in to wipe it out. Now, are they going to keep it? They're going to give it back. They've done this before where they've taken land and then they've ended up having to give it all back, or they've pulled back some. I think they're contemplating on that. They know it's going to be a hell of a fight if they go in there. So.
What is that? Will, is that your mic? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is it sound weird? I don't know. It sounded fine earlier, right?
I know I'm not taking crazy pills because I see people commenting it in the comments. So, yeah, there's like interference with the mic.
Is it doing it now? Because I was running my finger on the side of the computer. Maybe that's what was causing it. Is it doing it now?
No, you're all 5x5 now. Whatever interference is there is done.
Oh, I was rubbing my nail on the screen. I guess it was picking that up. My apologies.
Don't do that.
That's terrible, brother.
I'm not in my usual spot. So.
Yeah, I see Sergeant Major Archibald. Hey, brother, if you want to join in here, let me know. I'll bring you into the stream. Love to see your or get your input on this.
Also got to say too, I mean, now that this is coming up and they're an ally, is that things that we're going to be taking from the Ukraine, possibly helping them? I mean, how are we going to do all this? We're already short from giving all this stuff to Ukraine, and now, which is, you've been saying it for many moons here, Brent, if we ever needed our own gear and equipment, and we've been giving it so much to overseas, what that's going to be like.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point, and I want to talk about that. So, yes, we've been hooking up Ukraine for a while, and it's definitely depleted a lot of U.S. stock. I would imagine that our support to Ukraine is not going to decrease, but yet we're going to obviously start supporting the Israelis more than we already do in this conflict. So, if anybody in the world can manage that, it's us. But what about the Iranians? Because I know the Iranians have been supplying the Russians in their conflict, right? With, Iranian-made drones and who knows what other weapons. And we all know that the Iranians support, Hezbollah and probably Hamas too, to some degree, with weapon systems. So I wonder, how that's going to work, because I highly doubt the Iranians can, keep with their commitments to the Russians and support Hezbollah in the same degree that they have been. So I wonder.
Well, every time we free up $6 billion, it helps them out. So,
have you seen them adamantly go on the news talking about it? Well, that hasn't been touched.
Yeah, somebody brought something up just now that it's the Lake City ammo plant has been closed to commercial purchases and commercial orders for the foreseeable future. The Hornady plant was blown up. There's no real details on that, but the Hornady plant got blown up recently this last week. Let's see what else. I mean, when we talk about like the Pentagon has already come out and said that it's no problem to actually supply both countries at the same time. If you think about it, the amount of aid that we're giving in material and also funds is very insignificant compared to the expenses it would be to actually send an army over there and keep the army going like as we did in Afghanistan and Iraq. Is it going to hurt our ammo for like 5.56 because the Israelis are going to be using a shitload of it? They say that urban combat uses what? Probably 300% of the amount of ammo that you would use in a normal, natural environment. So if we're talking about linked, 308 and linked 5.56 and 5.56 out of Lake City, yeah, there's probably going to be a lot of that coming out. JDAMs, stuff like that, like our literal like platform munitions that go on our aircraft, yes. But as far as them not being able to produce their own stuff like Ukraine, it's totally different. Ukraine produced Soviet stuff for decades. They have lots of stuff. They literally have mines in the east that have been untouched. And if you look up Solidar, that was captured by the Russians last year, there was literally millions of tons of stuff from, like World War I, like all the way up to current era munitions and weapons and everything. There's so many weapons in Ukraine already. When I was there, I got handed a machine gun. It was a DP, and I was like, "How long has you guys had this?" And it was stamped 1944. He's like, "We just took it out of the Cosmoline yesterday. We have like 800 of them just sitting in the warehouse, never touched."
On your point, there's a great scene. I was watching Lord of War not too long ago, and there's a great scene where, just after the fall of the Soviet Union, he meets with the Ukrainian general, and he pretty much lays that out. It's like, hey, where's your loyalties lie? Like, you guys got all this stuff. Like, make a deal with me.
Yeah, they have so much. Like, as far like Soviet equipment, just going back it's fresh in my mind because I'm obviously close to it, but the Russians were able to identify and shoot back at a Ukrainian soft team that went in. One of the guys, team leader, his name was Swede, codename Swede. He was a guy from one of the Nordic countries that was team leader for Ukrainian soft. And they were showing things that were captured off of his team. I think maybe a couple of them were actually were killed in the or whatever firefight or whatever they were doing. And it was the 126th Coastal Defense Brigade of the Russians, and I'm not going to say where it was, but you can probably guess, in the south. And they were showing that they had some, quad nods. They had captured quad nods. They had captured a HK grenade launcher and a couple of HK ARs. And that's the kind of like new stuff that you see given to the Ukrainians. And when they say we don't give them new stuff, we do give them a little bit of new stuff, but it's all given to SOF. that's not given to like the regular forces. They have plenty of stuff of their own for the regular infantry.
Yeah, to go back to that comment you made to the IDF about not being what it once was, they're making the same mistakes they made 50 years ago, not combining the infantry and the armor. In 73, armor got wiped out. They lost about 1,000 tanks, I think, because they went in without infantry support. And it seems like the only thing they've made a real effort to keep updated and well trained is their Air Force. Like they put all their eggs in that particular basket.
Yeah, that's true. And if you you look at like recent pictures of the mobilization, Les, and you see that they're building cope cages on the Merkavas, the unstoppable, super tank that was taken out by, literally a couple of RPG-7s and a Sagger. What's a Sagger, Les? What technology is that? 1972?
That's 1960s.
1960s, yeah. I mean, so if these Cold War era ATGMs are taking out Merkavas, I mean, they're not even shooting RPG-29s or anything like that they used in Syria.
Careful, just... Logan. Les says that the Marine Corps needs Markava tanks. I remember that shit.
Stand by that statement too, because we have the exact same reason. The design principle behind the Merkava is that its most valuable thing is its crew, and it does very good at protecting its crew. And they do sacrifice some mobility, they do sacrifice some firepower to achieve that. Whereas the Abrams is more balanced, and if you look at other tanks in history, Soviet tanks, they're more about mobility than anything. So yeah, I stand behind the Merkava being a great tank. And no tank is invulnerable, even to multiple hits.
And just to go to that point, like the videos that you've seen of like Hamas knocking out Israeli tanks, like I think I saw one with a drone, and then there was one with infantry dismounts, pulling out the crew, and like there's no infantry and IDF infantry dismounts anywhere to be seen where these tanks are. So it goes to you guys' point how they're not using infantry dismounts with the tanks, at least in the defense how they were, right? And that's how they were knocked out, right? A tank by itself without infantry dismounts is just a sitting duck. But you combine infantry with tanks, and goddamn, that is a fucking force to be reckoned with.
And they've already found a way to defeat the trophy system with very low technology means. And if they're able to do that, I mean, if they, like you said, if they go in without infantry support, they're gonna get their shit pushed in. I mean, if you look at did you see so if you look at footage, like the layperson, if you're wondering what we're talking about, look at the footage of Ukraine in the first 2 months of the war, when they were actually able to get into the cities, like Kiev and other cities like that. And then look a little bit further back and you look at the Syrian civil war and look at the Syrian Arab army and look at how they utilized tanks and how they had to learn to utilize tanks correctly after they got butt raped, by our little ISIS friends or whatever we made over there. And you don't have to. The design behind the Merkava is that it's like a really great urban warfare tank, and that's why it has infantry in the back. But if those infantry aren't utilized like they're supposed to and they're isolated, then they're just going to get killed, like Les said. You got to use the tanks correctly.
And it's just it boggles the mind sometimes to say, hey, how they should be watching the same thing that everybody else is watching, and plus have way more intel to know that you got to have those infantry troops protecting those flanks and those rears of those tanks, or it's just a sitting duck. It's just a freaking, they're going to knock the tracks out, it's a platform there, and just get behind them and kill them all. I mean, we've been watching this now for 2 years over there in Ukraine and Russia, and in the beginning of that to see the destruction that can be done without them.
Yeah, it's very similar. Like when I watched the video of the Merkava that was disabled, and the crew was still alive when they pulled him out, but when they pulled other guys out, they were dead, and that was in the fighting compartment. Similar thing happened in Grozny. The 56, I believe it was the 56th or 52nd armored motorized regiment went into Grozny to try to capture the train station. And their idea was that they were going to be buttoned up the whole way, and they would just drive up to the train station, and then they would just sit there and let their tanks and weapon systems do the job. Their guys thought that they could rely on the armor to defeat anything that the Chechens had. And the similar thing happened with the Israelis. They just sat in the back of the Merkava and didn't come out. They were just buttoned up. And so I'm trying to think of an American example in Iraq that happened as well with the strikers. If you remember when the strikers first went in, it was very similar. And anybody in the chat that was in a striker brigade, you know what I'm talking about. When the strikers first went in, the infantry was in the back of the strikers, and they rode around everywhere in the strikers. But once they figured out that the strikers didn't really offer that much protection against concentrated RPG fire, IEDs, EFP, stuff like that, I don't remember a single striker dude riding in his actual striker after that. They were always walking. And the Israelis better figure that out soon, that they can't be sitting inside their armored vehicles, especially in urban combat.
Yeah, that's straight up the truth right there. And in urban combat, it's dirty, rotten, mean, and nasty, and your tanks really become giant door knockers more than anything else. So yeah, an armored spearhead isn't going to do you much except control a corner. It doesn't clear a building very well.
Yeah, I think the formula during the Syrian Civil War, they had two tanks, I think they were like T-62s or T-72s, and then they had 4 or 5 BMPs. Some of them didn't actually have guns on them, but those BMPs were like the infantry support, like active infantry support. And you saw when the tanks rolled into the areas where there were high rises, those BMPs unloaded, and those guys were taking the adjacent, at least the bottom floors of the adjacent buildings, and that's how they cleared, homes. That's how they cleared all those cities.
Yeah, all valid points. I mean, maybe the Israelis are just planning a very detailed operation. I mean, I hear some of those tunnels in Gaza go 100 feet down before they move in a direction towards Israel. So that's going to be a hard thing to clear out. And of course, every building you see over there is a high rise building, which those are always fun to take.
My question is who is going to be the one that's left responsible or not responsible to go in and get our people out? Because there is a lot of Americans over there too that are being held hostage.
Well, no, obviously nobody, at least none, not that we're tracking, knows where these hostages are. Hopefully our intelligence agencies have an idea, but can you imagine, like, those hostages are batting down right now? Like, they have probably 50 AK-47s within 20 feet of them at all times. That has got to be probably the worst hostage scenario that you can imagine right now. Real quick, I got my old company first sergeant during 2003 Iraq invasion, and then he retired as a sergeant major. But my good buddy Lawrence Archibald, welcome on the stream, brother.
Oh, thank you. You hear me?
Yeah, we got you loud and clear. So you want to throw your 2 cents in here? I know you've been listening to the stream.
Yeah, I have been on and off. When you're talking about event discussions.
So what we for the last 5-10 minutes or so, we've been talking about tanks in an urban setting, but you can talk about anything you've heard.
Okay, there's a little bit of a delay, but I've got you. You have been talking a lot of tactics, and what I was trying to get at was, it's kind of hard to focus that way, but what I was trying to get at was you're focusing on a lot of tactics, and it's good information of, what's going to happen, what you expect to happen, the tactics to be used, and what kind of close combat fighting to expect, especially as prepared as the area is going to be in, and with so much munitions expended. It's going to be very dangerous, obviously. But you're in the macro, and that's not what I wanted to. That's not what I thought this was going to be about. I thought this was going to be more about the cause and effect, how we got here, and what's the solution. The solution is really not to enter into Gaza. That's not, because there's no win there. There's no win for the Israelis propaganda-wise, marketing-wise. There's no win for the Palestinians because their people, innocent people, get killed, and the homeland gets further ruined. But the war here, the enemy, is not the nation, or the friend is not necessarily Israel or Palestine. It's the enemy that you have to focus on. The enemy is that transnational criminal syndicate. And that transnational criminal syndicate is the cause and effect of all of this, because the funding to Iran generates the Middle East terrorism. They fund it. We fund it through the CIA, Mossad. We're all guilty of it. Every country does it, right? They all have their criminal syndicate in each country. So that's why they hate nationalism so bad, because they can't stand the independent thought of the populace going with somebody they know is telling them the truth against the lies that they hear over and over. That's why I understand the micro, and it's a really emotional subject. Sometimes you got to take that 40,000-foot view and look down on the battlefield and say, wait a minute here. I feel like I'm getting suckered in again. I've been through this before. I've been through this several times before. You have too. So my point on this is the macro will get you sucked into the narrative. You go further, deeper in the matrix. You stay out of the macro, focus on who's causing this and what the goal is. If you always follow the money, you'll always get the truth. It's hard to get, but you'll always get the truth. And you may not like the truth because it's going to stare you right in the face and say a lot of these reasons that's going on, a lot of the events that's going on right now are because of our government. It's not really our government. Remember, these are people that are not elected. And if you think the Palestinians are backing Hamas, they don't elect Hamas. Remember that. We don't elect our politicians. They get selected for us. I live in Arizona, 2018, 2009, or 2020, 2022, all stolen, proven. Of course, here they're all sold out and bought and paid for. These are truths. These are facts. So I live in a what do you call it? A belligerently occupied state, just like several other states and Washington, D.C. Belligerently occupied because we did not elect those. Those are not our representatives. They represent corporations, banks, and other special interests. Everything but the American people. Their paychecks prove it. The results prove it. The facts prove it. But this is a war on corruption worldwide, so don't lose hope. I'm not trying to blackpill anybody. I'm just trying to refocus the narrative instead of the shielding that's going on because you're getting sucked into the micro. Watch what's going on. Netanyahu's no friend of the United States. He owns most of the Congress anyways. If you don't believe that, go look and see how many dual citizenships there are in Congress. How many have had to resign, have walk away? How many CEOs have walked away and resigned? How many big pharma have lost their business? BlackRock, George Soros closed 40 some offices yesterday. They announced it. So we're winning, but it's a war on crime, and it's worldwide. Israel has to take care of their region. That's why Saudi Arabia is backing off. They're keeping the other Arab nations in check, saying, let's see if Trump is going to keep his word. Let's see if America is going to jump to Israel's aid like they did last time. Let's see if we're being led by a false prophet down false hopes. So the best solution is really for Israel not to go into Gaza, except cordon it off again, just like we did in Fallujah, get control of the perimeter, and just wait them out. Eventually, the Palestinians will get the good guys out, and what you'll have less is nothing but the criminals. They'll weed their way out, and then you'll learn more about their networks. You can map them even more. Remember, this is also an inside job on the Israelis, too. So that's why I say I don't trust Netanyahu either. If you think the Israelis got caught with their pants down, you're all more experienced than that. You're way more experienced than that.
Well, Arch, so
I'm sorry, but
I get what you're saying.
thanks for inviting me out. And
No, I
cheers
appreciate.
to you.
I knew you'd be explosive,
I know
man.
it's
That's
a
why I
Monday.
wanted you in here.
You slide over again. I keep sliding this way.
I
Anyway,
knew
cheers
you'd
to
be
you.
explosive, man. That's why I invited you in here. I just want to say though, like, I know you're saying that the
First break in
Israelis
about 4
shouldn't
months.
go in, but it looks like they are going to go in. So are you saying that you think they're just going to cordon it off and they're not going to go in? They're just giving that appearance? Jeremy?
I think
I'm
there's
sorry. Yeah, I got to fix the delay here. Let me log back in on your. How's that?
Yeah, sounds good. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. Okay, that fixed it. I was on the wrong screen too.
All right. So, yeah. So what I was going to ask you is I understand what you're saying, like, hey, focus on the macro. But it looks like Israel is going to go in. And I know you're saying that you don't think they should, right? They should just cordon off the area and then eventually we're going to get those hostages back. But it looks like Israel is going to go in. Do you think that's
But do you understand why? I mean, it's more than just the killings. Those are shocking enough. I'm not saying they didn't happen, but if you understand the false flag narrative, this falls right into 9/11 type scenario. I'm just saying, don't get sucked into the emotional, patriotic, normal. We got to kill everything. This is not that. This is being sucked in because the criminal syndicate is being cornered worldwide, and they are desperate to start a war. If you go back to the 16-year plan, and you will see how they mapped it out, we were supposed to have already been in several years of lockdown with the virus, the serum still not still not produced, and they were going to keep us locked down, draconian effort, and then produce the virus if they needed it, if they couldn't produce the nuclear war. So they're going to try to do a nuke here on this soil. They still may, but I think the president, what I meant by President Trump telling you yesterday in his speech, he pointed out to you point blank, and he's never been wrong about what he tells us. He says what happened in Gaza is gonna happen here. It's been planned by Obama, Hillary, and Biden. So they're following through on it. And if you go back and look at the 16-year plan, it maps out. Remember, he interrupted 4 years. He really hurt them bad. He hurt them bad. He took out a lot of their IC specialists, right? Their collection gathering, their nets. He basically violated them badly. And because he was an insider, so he knew where he was going. Remember, if you look at Trump as a FBI asset all the way back to the 70s, Batman, right? Billionaire, hobby as a crime fighter with his best friend Rudy Giuliani, Commissioner Gordon. If you want to look at it that way, they go back through the 80s, the 90s. They cleared out the 5 families. They went to Jersey. Then they went out to Vegas. Then they went to Hollywood. Now they're in D.C. He cleaned out Florida for the most part. You see what's going on from state to state to state. He's trying to hire good governors and get people awake to find out how we're being subverted, how we were infiltrated with communists. 8 years of Obama, the subvert, the Muslim, right? The Kenyan Muslim. He's not even American. His only allegiance is to destroy America, not to preserve it. And we're seeing that clear as day now. So if you trust Biden, he's not, to me, he's not the legitimate president, because I'll always say, remember the 3rd of November. Always remember the 3rd of November. Because it wasn't about January 6th. That was a setup. That was a trap. It was. You can't prove. I can prove it. Jay, the videos are coming out. Go look at the Epoch Times. I know. It's happening. Logan, I am sorry I didn't introduce myself.
You're all good, brother.
Yeah, I'm ranting, but and Pegasus, I pissed him off, I think. I hope not. Unless I inspired him with some bourbon.
No,
Well, let's talk about where the money's really coming from.
Right.
Hamas has been funded for the past 10 years, not by Iran, but by Israel
Hmm.
and the country of Qatar.
Why did they fund them though?
They funded them because they wanted the PLO to go away and other groups. If you think about the Palestinian
To gain
liberation
control of the
organizations,
region, right? That's why they did it. They created another group to gain
no, I
control.
mean they were already created. I mean it's just divide and conquer, my man. Just like everything
Well, they
else.
fund them, right?
You
How do
find
you create a group? You fund them.
I mean they were already created, Sergeant Major. It's just that you find the weakest. You have a group of animals, so to speak, right? And you feed the smallest one, and that throws the balance of the pack out of whack. And then they're busy dealing with each other, and then you don't have to deal with them. That was their idea. If you look at the tunnels in Gaza, you know who built them?
PLO.
The Israelis. The Israelis built them
Yeah.
when they were occupying the city, most of them. And the country of Qatar is a very extremely rich country. I remember I was there in 2010, and I was visiting with one of their deputy ministers of defense at his house, which was a gigantic house. And I remember being in the back drinking tea with him, and these guys came by on jet skis, and I was like, "Who's that?" And he's like, "Oh, that's Gaddafi." I mean, these people are like literally tied in with the all the Arab countries, the Gulf countries, the Persians, all the major players in the region, including the Israelis. And if you look at what you're talking about, Sergeant Major, you're talking about like international connections and stuff like that. If you look at the House of Saud, I mean, you don't even need this example, but yeah, the House of Saud, everybody knows that they have Jewish roots, and this is talked about very widely in the Arab world to make fun of them. But you can go back further, like in biblical record, that where did the tribes go to when they were expelled from Egypt before they went to the Holy Land? In the wilderness.
Yeah, to the wilderness.
You know where the wilderness is in Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia.
So, yeah. So, and if you look at the Quran, the Quran is basically the story of how Muhammad fought all the Jewish tribes of Saudi Arabia, and had to have all these wars against them because they didn't want his religion to come to power. And most of the people in that region come from those Bedouin Jewish tribes.
Right.
And so when you look at the connections between the Israelis and the Saudis, the Qataris, all these other Gulf countries, they're tied together by blood. They look very similar if you look at them.
I agree with you. There's more that connects them that divides them. The only
Yes.
thing that divides them is the warmongers that need division to rule. Okay, if I thought you were going to bring Saudi Arabia up, well, let's talk about Saudi Arabia and where was the money coming from prior to 2017? Saudi Arabia, right? Not Ben Salman, but his uncle, right? Talib, the same guy that owned the top 8 floors of the Mandalay, or the towers there where the shooter was in Las Vegas. I mean, these are you go back and look what happened. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. You're muted.
There's hundreds of Saudi princes. There's like the Saudis and the other Gulf countries. They have like, can you imagine getting millions of dollars a month? I mean, they literally have to invest it. They buy up a bunch of stuff in the United States. It's not, and like I put recently in the chat, like these people, it looks like everybody's going the same direction, but it's not one monolithic conspiracy. People are just trying to fuck each other over and make money. It's a bunch of people, like a million different conspiracies happening at once.
Right,
It's
but that's kind of a plus. You throw the government in there, and then we have what's called fascism, and that's kind of what we see: the blending of government and corporations to dictate what the truth is and what they deem as appropriate and not appropriate. When the Saudi did their cleansing in 2000, was it November of 2017? That changed everything else and made the Abraham's Accord possible. Before that, they couldn't because all the wrong actors were in place before Saudi arrested 300 members of their family, right? They saw it, and then placed the new prince in power.
Well, King Faisal is he's a very ardent supporter of the Palestinian people,
Right, and
but
Prince
he's not
Faisal,
really
right, but
that
listen
in
to me
power
here.
right now.
And I tie this back into Donald Trump and his visit to Saudi Arabia. What did the king do for Donald Trump when he arrived? What did he give him? He gave him the sword dance, right?
Yeah, I remember he gave a bunch of classified documents to his son-in-law
Yeah,
too.
he went and showed him the proof of everything he had. Yeah, and Donald Trump went on a world tour.
I know, but he did.
I mean, his
You
first
can't.
stop
You
was
can't.
his first stop was Saudi Arabia. Showed him, hey, this is what we have on everybody. This is who tried to kill you, and we're gonna take some action against these. We're gonna shut off all your money if we don't do this. And within a month, look what happened. They arrested 300 of the members here, and they changed the whole direction of the Middle East. And
Well, I
then
mean, what happened?
where did he go
It's the
next? He
same.
went to Israel.
Sorry, Major. I hate to interrupt you, but it's the same concept. Israel funded Hamas to shake up the establishment. Trump is not a, you're saying like Trump is like some like mastermind or something like that, but he did do something very smart. He sent his son-in-law to Saudi Arabia
Yeah, Krishna. Yeah.
with our security services, and he made sure that MBS was the crown prince. He was named the crown prince,
Right.
and made sure that all the power flowed through him.
But his previous
We chose the animal, we fed him, and now look, we have to deal with the consequences of what we did.
What you were saying earlier is now look who is holding the other Arab countries back to see what happens. It's MBS. So you're seeing the result of the Abraham Accords. There's people trying to destroy it. The criminals are trying to destroy it because they can't launder money through states that are independent or nationalist, and they can't launder money and do their criminal enterprises in non-puppet states. So yeah, you look better there. But
Well, I
I'm
mean,
just pointing out.
the Abraham Accords don't matter though. You know why?
Why is that?
Because the opposition to the Abraham Accords have thoroughly funded and exacerbated the conflict between the Yemenis, the Houthis, and the Saudis and their coalition.
They're
And now
continuing to do
the Saudis are bogged down in a war on their southern part of their country.
it. Yeah,
And
they're
they're never
back a criminal into a corner.
yeah. I mean, I agree with you on a lot of what you're saying. It's just that we have to look at the actual money. Like, let's look at don't look at what other countries are doing. Look at what our country is doing too,
Yeah,
and not just during the Biden, but during the Trump.
Point.
Before that, the George Bush. Do you remember what George Bush did in Yemen?
Yeah.
He sent our third special forces group over there. We were training them for years and years and years and years.
Well, that's my point here. Is it's the the endless wars. We saw it starting almost with after World War II, right? They went into the Bay of Pigs. The CIA tried to draw America into the invasion of Cuba. It failed, and then they went into Korea, right? They sparked an invasion in South Korea. They then went on to, after Korea, they started the Vietnam conflict. Before that, there were smaller conflicts, little brush fires, right? Puppet wars, until something ignites. That's what they do. They go to these little places. They try to install governments. This is us. This is our government, in the name of us, which you and I don't agree with, but they do it anyways, right? Because they have the money and they have the assets.
Well, let's talk about us. Us, in essence, are 5 or 6 factions within DC of a perpetual bureaucratic legion of think tanks and other people that are always in power, no matter who the president is. It doesn't matter if it's Biden. It doesn't matter if it's Trump. It doesn't matter if it's Obama,
Right.
Bush, whatever. All these dudes have been in these advisory positions or they're political appointees for the past 40 years.
Right. That's the problem. The old guard won't give up.
But there's multiple factions. You see what I'm saying? Is
Right.
the policy is made by the most powerful faction in DC at the moment, and so the people that had the
Let me ask you
foresight to
that.
send
Who is
the
that?
guys.
Who's the most
Who?
powerful in DC right now?
I mean,
What does optics tell you? Let's talk about narrative here.
F optics, really.
No, I mean,
But
really. I mean, what if I'm Joe Blow and I'm watching this podcast and I'm thinking,
Mhm.
well, who really is in charge in Washington? Is it
I mean,
Joe
the cent-
Biden?
the
Is
center,
it Jake
it's
Sullivan?
not
Is it
it's not Joe Biden, but it is the centrist international Democrats who you see fill the positions of
you
primarily
can call them a
the State
national?
Department,
You can call them a Democratic Socialist Party, or you can call them a transnational criminal syndicate because they tie in. That ties into a lot more because it's like you said. There's factions in DC.
Yes.
They're not all the same syndicate, but they're combining for the same goal, right? Because they all
I mean,
profit
just
from the same thing.
look
Moving
at look
drugs,
at the look at the look at the early life section of all the the cabinet of Joe Biden. I challenge you. And if you look at, like, for instance, Anthony Blinken, look at his early life section.
Mhm.
What do you think these people hold two passports? Do you think that they have loyalty to just the United States?
No, that's my point. Is the old guard will not give up. Donald Trump came along and exposed how the system works. He showed you, he unplugged you, right, from the matrix. He's showing you how the criminal syndicate works. He's showing you
I
DC in all of its
I,
ugliness.
I agree that he shook things up in DC,
Oh no, if
but
you're not paying attention, there's still this speaker to battle today showed me a lot. There's a lot of arm bending going on really hard right now. And
I
you know
mean,
what? It needs to happen.
everybody needs to take a step back and stop this populist nonsense,
Mhm.
because that's what gets us into trouble.
It's not about populism. You think it's
Trump
about
Trump
populism.
Trump
Yeah,
did a lot of things wrong, Sergeant Major.
I know, but you
You have
think
to
it's
admit
about
that.
populism. Okay, let me tell you this. If it's not Donald Trump, who's it going to be to save this country? Because
Everybody.
who else is talking peace? Who else is talking solutions? No one, because they can't even complete a whole sentence. This is a
You have to
joke.
realize that our
Most of these
government is
people are
not
being
united
scripted.
in any way. You have to look at the voting in the past 2 weeks on the funding for the Defense Department, the overall funding for the government. You look at the funding for anything. Look at the decision on how to help Israel or not. You have to look and see how disjointed our government currently is.
No, time out,
We
time
d-
out, time out.
yeah.
I see this different, totally 180.
Hmm.
Totally 180. I see the pause as a
Mhm.
necessary event. We don't need to fund Ukraine. We don't need to fund Israel. We need to protect our southern border. We need to get our ports in order. We need to get our highways done. We need to get our hospitals fixed. We got our homeless on the streets. We got veterans without proper care. Time out. Time the fuck out.
I
Man, we
agree,
got
but
to spend money to save
we can't
money.
fall ourselves into an isolationist position, because
No, it's
you
not
know who loves.
isolationist. But when are you going to stop the crime? You got to stop the crime somewhere, and they're still lying to your face on mainstream media that it's
Hey, Arch,
business as usual.
Arch,
That's the problem. It's not.
I got a question for you, Arch, because I want
Yeah.
to hear where you stand on this. And by
I'll
all
try to
means,
catch
Will, Les, you guys can jump in. We've just been sitting here eating popcorn, watching, which is great, guys.
Sorry about that.
we
man.
didn't
Sorry.
have a dedicated topic for tonight, so like I'm all about watching debate. And for anybody that thinks this is an echo chamber, like I don't know.
No. I'll tell you. I've been a warrior, Brett, since you woke me up online, more or less. Before that, I've been following along for quite a while. But it has to be said, people have to hear a different point of view because their point of view is not always right. And if you're pissed off by what I'm saying, that means you're getting a little cognitive dissonance.
Hey,
that means I touched something that wasn't supposed to be touched. And it's sensitive. I don't mean to put Logan on the spot, but I don't,
well, Arch,
I'm not
I just want
buying
to hear.
into this we need to go to war thing.
I want to hear your
I think
position on
saving
this.
lives right now is probably the best thing Israel could do for their image.
What
You know what I mean? At least a blow off period where they can get their shit in line, because according to the IC community, they were caught completely off guard, so they must be all fucked up. Sorry, can I say that on YouTube?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I don't want to get you fined.
Arch, what is your position on communist China? So, like, I would love to focus completely on America, but I know, just looking at history, right, what happens when we take an isolationist approach, like shit goes to hell in a handbasket around us. In my opinion, is communist China has their tentacles all over the place in the world, and if we sit back and only do shit within our own borders, then the communist Chinese are going to be on our doorstep. So what is your opinion on communist China? That's what I'd like to know.
Well, like I said, every nation around the globe has its criminal element. Some criminal elements are the government. You understand what I'm saying? Chinese are no different. I have no problem with the Chinese people. I have no problem with the North Korean people. I have no problem with the Palestinian people. But what I do have problems with is people trying to lead me down a path that says I have to hate you because somebody told me so. You understand what I'm getting at? Now, murders of children and innocents, that's no problem. I can get all over that. I'd like to line them up. But the point here is don't get suckered in too fast because you really don't know who the enemy. Because the Palestinians are innocent people in some sense. They did not elect Hamas. And again, that's my point. You get down to that micro about how you're going to clear blocks. The battle's already over. You lost the narrative. You're already sucked into it. You got to back out a little bit. Take a deep breath. You wouldn't go run into a gunfight without knowing what you're facing here. I mean, that's how you get suckered in, right? You don't want to get suckered in here. Logan, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just reading the chat.
Oh, I can't read it and talk at the same time.
I mean, we have to be realistic about the way our country's run, yes. And we know that there's factions within the government that want nothing but outward conflict to control the narrative of political discussion in this United States.
Oh yeah.
And there's people that will take advantage of that financially and make a lot of money. Halliburton, for instance, stuff like that. But there's a balance that needs to be taken. That the government literally exists to protect our borders and to protect us from outward threats. And part of that is force projection. In some countries, they can afford to do it, like us, like the French, and some countries can't. And usually what happens is they project intelligence assets in other countries in order to manipulate things instead of armies. I think a lot of this, everybody's saying that Israelis got caught with their pants down, but they really didn't. I mean, the problem is that for the past probably 15, 20 years, the development of signals intelligence and open source intelligence and cyber intelligence, we can call it cyber-enabled human or human-enabled cyber, has given a lot of like big data information to include things that can be brought up to develop intelligence and also to what we call like intelligence triggers, like for targeting purposes. And so the past 15, 20 years, we've been using particularly SIGINT to do all these operations. And the commanders and the people in the intelligence community, the administration, both past and present, have become reliant on that kind of technology to do assessments on what's going to happen. And they've gotten away from doing human intelligence, which is really it takes a lot longer than signals intelligence to develop.
Yeah, but see, this
sometimes years.
This is why a guy like me sitting in my garage can probably be better informed than a lot of those military IC guys or briefers that don't go look for the research. They just give it to them. And this is what you're going to parrot. It's like the talking points with the media.
I mean, let me just give you an example, and I'll try to keep this as mundane as possible so I don't get myself in trouble. But I, through human intelligence sources, was able to identify funding from the Kuwaiti government officials that were purchasing stock and and I'm talking like majority stock in a Canadian-based coffee company, and they were using the proceeds of that coffee company that may or may not look like a forest herbivore mammal to give directly to agencies like Hamas, to Al Qaeda in Iraq, other terrorist organizations at the time. And when we tried to publish this information, the military attaché in Kuwait City told us that we were never again to contact this source, and that we would never publish this information report, and it would stay a draft information report forever. And either they wanted it not to embarrass the country or this particular official. But I mean, you have to realize, Sergeant Major, intelligence manipulation is a real thing, especially for political means. And if they don't want a certain thing to come out, even out of the intelligence community, they won't release it. I mean, within their own. I mean, it's not like the Kuwaitis or somebody else was reading these reports. These were secret, no foreign, which means no foreigners can read them. So who is reading these things? You have to realize that people in D.C. release a lot of. It's not just Trump and these other people that have released classified documents. It's every administration. Think about Hillary Clinton and how she was releasing classified information.
You know, the thing
It's
about
done
Trump,
for political
when
means.
When he was president, he declassified everything pertaining to Spygate, Russiagate, Russia. It's the impeachment.
I mean, but Sergeant Major,
you gotta understand where a lot of this-
Russia was influencing them. We
Yeah, but it
can't
was with the
get away
Clintons.
from
It
that.
wasn't with Trump.
It's with everybody.
Clinton's bought and paid for it. She had to pay a $300,000 fine to the FCC for paying Christopher Steele through a law firm to start the Trump dossier. That's court records. You can go find it.
Sergeant Major, you know better than I don't know what echelon you were at, but you know better than I that a lot of people that go to sometimes the 06 and especially the general officer level, they do not give a fuck about classified information. They treat it so poorly. And imagine how bad that goes all the way up. I remember I was in Germany and we were moving the general out of his house, and we had to do like a sweep of his house to make sure he didn't leave anything accidentally. We found footlockers of secret no foreign documents in his basement that he just left there.
That's not right then.
I mean,
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is it happens everywhere.
I worked 6 years for an 06, and actually 4 of them. And over those 6 years, we took that threat very seriously, especially, and we weren't even frontline units. I mean, we stood up 121 over here in Yuma. That was the biggest security event going on. Even, all these VIPs coming down, so you had to, hop and jump to the whatever tune we were playing that week. It was that kind of goat rope, where the dog and pony show was going on. Where, but for the most part, the information is always taken seriously. I don't know if you think that's rampant throughout the military. It could be. I didn't see that, but I still take it very seriously. Maybe just a different generation. I was told that you could go to jail for abusing it.
Yeah, me and you would go to jail for abusing it, but guess
Yeah,
what?
that's why we take it
When you reach the general officer and administrative levels of our government, you're not going to get in trouble.
Again, another thing that it didn't take Trump to expose this, but it's bringing it into the media highlight, right? The two-tier justice system, the class system that goes on in America. There is actually a slavery class in America. You understand that, right? I mean, there's people out there that have no choice. They're relying on someone else to feed them and take care of them. That's just, and they work for next to nothing. That's a slave. That's you become a landowner or a lord at that point for a bigger vassal, or it just doesn't make any sense. But in America, it's not what they tell you it is, and you know that. You're seeing that. We need to clean the system, and Trump's telling us that.
But it's not just the government, Sergeant Major. I mean, people are commenting on here. I mean, let's talk about, if we want to talk about non-state actors, look at the corporations within our own economic
right, and look at the
sphere.
cancellations that's been going on, right? because America and MAGA are waking up and they realize they have a voice. It's not all, we are literally in a psyop. We've been at war. And I say we've been at war since October of 2019, because that's when the virus somehow came out of Wuhan, China.
I mean, the Chinese admittedly have been in hybrid war with us since what, Brent? When did that Chinese general publish that document that they've been in a hybrid conflict with us for 15 years?
Yeah, it's been probably 14 or 13 or so, but they actually, here's my take on this, but I don't even think the Chinese Communist Party has the balls to release a virus worldwide. And I know this is going to sound bizarre, and I don't have any proof for the origin, but I do have proof that it came out of Wuhan, China. But at the same time, within 2 weeks of the market, so-called, they can narrow it down to the market, and the so-called lab release, you had the International Military Olympics going on in Wuhan, China in October of 2019, research. And Ukraine sent 186 members. If you found that many biolabs on your border, would you invade? If you knew they released already in China, would you invade? If you knew they were going for something bigger, would you invade? Look at all the crises that have been going on since 2019 that I can be aware of that have Ukraine's signature on it directly or indirectly through the CIA or the State Department, right? Who is the State Department? State Department's still not working for the United States. They're all foreign controlled actors. And who does the CIA turn to when the military's cut off? Or who does the State Department turn to when the military's cut off? They turn to the CIA, right? Because the CIA can get contractors. That's what you see going on, the submarine pipeline attack. You see the bridge attack. You're seeing other things going on that just don't make sense unless let's start looking at the data points and let's start looking at the patterns. Now, I want you to take that seriously because I can't prove that Ukraine released it at the International Military Olympic Games in 2019, but it sure does fit into the timeline very well. And it makes sense that it would create tension between the people of China and the United States when they found out we funded that thing by the CCP. They already hate the CCP. You see the motives going on here, the high table point of view. They don't care about us. We're just pawns.
I mean, I'm trying to not.
I'm surprised we can even say this on live stream right now, because I've been highly censored, filtered, and my reach is very limited on social media.
Let's be real. Let's be real about biowarfare. The only reason that we have had to be so invested in counterproliferation of biological weapons is because the Russians have pioneered this for such a long time.
There's nothing you can say that's going to justify U.S.-funded biolabs creating vaccines and doing testing on the Russian border.
I mean, if the Russians are developing migratory carrier pigeons, the freaking viruses, why would you not place the research facilities close to it? Remember that a country's security services will always say what they're doing by accusing somebody else.
And again, what we get is we don't even know if it's real, most of it.
I mean, we know that these viruses are created. I'm trying not to give too much away, but knowing guys who are in special mission units that their only job is counterproliferation of bioweapons, there are factions within the government. We can't think of the government as like just this monolithic thing that will do everything at the same time in the same direction. No.
Yeah, but
we literally have a shadow army within the United States that answers only to certain people in the executive branch.
Bingo.
And they
Not
don't
really the executive branch, but in the cabal, in the transnational criminal syndicate.
Well, I mean, these
Not
that's
every
what
American is a traitor.
Go back to the speech by Kennedy before he was killed. What did he say? He said that there was an international group of people that were out to take control of the United States along with other countries through sedition and subversion, and that was meant to to gain control of the government. So
Right.
what did he
Shadow
do?
government.
He created the first special mission units,
Right.
and their purpose was not to do hostage rescue. Their purpose was to answer only to the President of the United States or other people within the DoD, and to conduct operations to ensure that these international syndicates, as you will, did not take over our country through subversion and sedition. Even if they gain control of the military, their job is to make sure that there is another military on standby that can
But that's what you're seeing
decapitate
unfold, and
these people.
most people can't visualize that. That's exactly what we're seeing in the past 5 years. We saw who asked Trump to run for president. It was the military, right? The military contacts. They asked him to run for president. You've heard his previous comments. Remember, I told you, Batman. He cleans up crime wherever he goes. He's a DOJ asset. Doesn't it make sense? All these indictments. You need a template to mass produce, industrialize. You need a template. Does that make sense now? They need a template to mass produce what's coming up. They're going to clean up the criminals. The CCP has already started. Saudi Arabia has done theirs. Putin's already done his, and he's working on the Nazis on his borders. Not the Ukrainians, the Nazis, right? He said he was going to denazify Ukraine. And that's what needs to happen, because look what's going on in Israel. You need to denazify Israel. It's not the Israeli people or even the Israeli government, but you got to denazify the mindset of that, what do you call it, Islamo-Nazi mindset that there's only one way to go, and it's through violence. That's through intimidation and violence. That's the only way you get things done. That's not the way to do it. Instead, they installed themselves, or the shadow government installed them, right? Puppets, Hamas in Palestine. And Israel benefits because money gets washed through there. The Hamas benefits because they get millions washed through there. And then over time, you got to expect them to take some kind of military action, because that's how they generate more money. You see how that works?
I mean, sorry, Major, the whole purpose of this whole set of conflicts is about money. If you look at this past couple of days, the Taliban government has made a deal with the Chinese government to be part of their Belt and Road system. And I explained this previously.
Now we're getting down to the roots and cause of this, and again, goes back to Brent's question about the CCP. No, I don't trust the CCP. I don't trust the CCP one inch. They're one of the evilest forces that's ever been on this planet. But it doesn't mean the Chinese are evil. Just like the Americans are not evil. But our government does some of the evilest shit in the world.
I mean, but it doesn't change the fact that they need to be stopped. We can't
and that's what we can't
internalize this nationalistic aversion and talk about, I mean, the hypocrisy of the way some people think, and then they say we got to get rid of the Nazis. It just confounds me sometimes.
Well, it's the ideologies. I mean, the CCP is the same kind of ideology. So the communist ideologies.
I mean,
it's the same thing that's self-destructive to its population.
You have to look. I mean, you look at the major conflicts of the past 200 years. The main, let's call them bad guys of these wars, did exactly that. They physically removed people that they thought were subversives and people that would commit national security crimes in their country. And did they commit genocide? Yes, they did. Mao
Zedong.
I mean, all of them.
Yeah, you Stalin. Who else was that? I mean, you look at the history. Yeah, it's repeating itself, and it's cyclic. You're seeing it going in, but it's the people that are not affected, the one percenters or less than one percenters. They orchestrate all this stuff. They move things around, and they move money here to influence this and move that. And they're trying to suck us into another war that will benefit them. It won't benefit America. It won't benefit the Palestinians. It won't benefit the Israelis. But they need to clean up the corruption. And that's the only thing that's going to work.
I'm going to shoot a red star cluster up here because we're only 30 mics into the 2 hour mark. And,
sorry.
We kind of got down a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
I want to
we're gonna do
pivot.
that.
I want to pivot, and I definitely want to hear from other two guys. Let's talk southern border right now. We also need to talk. The Republicans haven't came up with the Speaker of the House. Okay, but we got the southern border right now, and I heard the other day that the Biden administration is starting to build structures on the southern border, right? So remember him talking about saying that the wall was useless and not necessary and a waste of money, but now it sounds like they're building structures. So if we can, let's start shooting some rounds downrange over that topic.
Well, I don't think they're building any walls. I think it's just physical barriers. You got to get the language right. They can't build not one more inch of wall, but physical barriers that keep things from going from one side to the other. That's acceptable.
Yeah,
I think the biggest thing is it took some years, but I mean, people all over the country getting the influx that's coming through, especially Texas, from where you guys are from, getting a little taste of it. I think people all up north getting a little taste of it. I think that's the biggest thing that changed a lot of people's minds and put it on the forefront.
Our governor in Texas, Greg Abbott, months back started busing illegals to some of these left-wing states and cities, and I remember at the time they didn't make much of it and they laughed at it, but now these left-wing states and cities are getting overran with illegals from the southern border. And notice how stuff is starting to happen now, right? Notice how structures are starting to get erected on the southern border, and there's starting to be some stuff done about the problem because of these actions. So at least that's from my foxhole. That's what it looks like to me, anyways.
Yeah, and again, remember from each foxhole to foxhole, if I touch anything, we see the same events at different perspectives, right? So your event maybe differ in the narrative from mine because of perspective. And again, I see this as it's a narrative warfare. It's all it is. It's psyop. So Biden says, "Oh, now after the New York City mayor cries, we're going to go start installing border wall," and the media just jumps on it. Let me ask you: do you believe the media?
I don't believe the media. I think a lot of it's bullshit, but not everything is bullshit. Like some of the stuff happens, right? So if we get reports that Hamas infiltrated Israel and killed a bunch of civilians, and Hamas is putting out GoPro video of them doing it, like that shit happened, right? So that's not bullshit. There's going to be a spin on it. It's just how much of it is BS and how much of it is legit.
Right, but you understand they're planning the narrative. So if you go against the narrative, then you're gonna get kickback. You're gonna get suppressed. You're gonna get you're anti-Semitic, or you're gonna get all these little hits on you. I mean, and you see the shielding going on. Oh, they killed so many. We need to crush them all. It was so severe, but they don't show you the hundreds that Israel has caused over the years as well. They don't show you both sides of the story. They just show you one side because they want you to get excited about it, especially the border. This is no different. The only reason they said they started building a wall, which is probably 20 feet, 30 feet, maybe that, I would say, prove it. Show me the source. Show me the pictures. Show me them doing it. Show me the contracts. Because this is one of those things I'm not buying, because it's just too convenient after New York City mayor goes to South America or to Central America on his I Care Now tour, and is fundraising to stop the influx into New York City. Please send them somewhere else, right? Anywhere else but New York City. We need money. We need money here. Remember when Trump set up the hospital ships, set up tents in Central Park? Nobody came for COVID. False flags are real. Okay, deaths are real. Doesn't make the false flag any less real. They use these as narratives and narrative shielding to support a platform they're already on. And again, I say this is all about fundraising. we're going to show you we're building the border. We need to help New York City because they're underwater.
Right. Yeah. I totally agree. And I want to see proof of like a wall getting built. Right. I want there to be physical structures or whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Let me show you this though. Over the last I think it was just last week, Ben Bergquam at the El Paso entrance showed the welded open gates. The Federal Border Patrol came in and welded the gates open. When the Texas National Guard was closing it, Federals keep opening it up and welding it shut, welding it open. That came out. That was a video, and again, it showed on as much as you could rely on seeing it for your own eyes, and again, as live as you can get. Some of these videos coming out of Ukraine and you got to admit, Israel have been fake. They're propaganda, right? It's a psyop. Doesn't mean it's not real. It just means you're engaged in a psyop as well as everything else. Hey, dude, when I realized I was lied to over the last 60 years, oh yeah. When you lie, remember I was born in 1962, just a few months after John F. Kennedy was shot, assassinated by our own government, by people in our own government, not our own government, but people in our own government, right? George H.W. Bush, his CIA contacts, the ones who did the Bay of Pigs, they're all involved in that. And then that truth came out. Remember, we're seeing the declassification because Trump ordered the declassification while he was president. This is why they hate him so much. You guys got to understand. I love it. They hate him so much because he's forcing the truth upon them, and all the decades of lies are coming apart. And you're seeing the net effect of that. It's a psyop. But you got to understand where you stand in that psyop. If you're a patriotic American, this should piss you off. Not that Trump's doing it, but they've been getting away with it through the media sources they owned, right? Before, it was only 6 channels on the TV when I was growing up. So you had to plug into their program. That's why they call it a program, right? The television. You program yourself into the television and you'd watch the tele news. Literally, CBS, ABC, NBC.
Arch, here's my issue, man. I know you're pro Trump and everything, and like I like a lot of the stuff. I like a lot of stuff he did, but like you've mentioned the COVID and the vaccine and all this stuff multiple times, and you've thrown a lot of weight behind Trump, and like every time I see Trump, it's like vaccine's the most fantastic thing ever. I hope ushered it in record time. Like, and then I look at the Second Amendment, right, and he, through the ATF, he pushed through, banning bump stocks and all this other stuff. So it's like, I like a lot of stuff Trump did, but at the same time, like, I think there's somebody better. And like a lot of guys that I had a lot of respect for, General Mattis being one of them, General Kelly being another, they were, when they were first appointed by President Trump, they were the greatest thing since pockets on jeans. And then, once they are like, hey, I resign, I'm done with this guy. It's like most overrated generals in history, for both of them. It's like, okay, come on. Like I maybe once I can understand.
You got to understand too. You got to have some shielding, right? You know what kayfabe is, right? It's a wrestling term. The pro wrestling term. It's like a fake fight.
No, I'm not tracking.
Yeah, kayfabe. Trump has to remember the position. He's being attacked from every direction, right? How do you take care of your friends? Sometimes you have to push them away to give them coverage. So you call them a scumbag or whatever you're going to call them. You push them away, and they go out and do what they're going to do. But at least they're not being attacked because they support Trump. You understand what I'm getting at?
I think we got better options, brother. I think we can do better than Trump.
Yes, but let me give you this option. If it's not now, when's it going to be? It's not going to be 2024.
Well, somebody needs to rise from the freaking ashes and not ban bump stocks and not do a bunch of other shit. Who else?
You're not looking at the big picture though. You're just, again, you're back on the micro, and we want to talk back. So I'm looking for the 16-year plan, and that way I could show you why he did warp speed and why he's trying to get ahead of the timeline. You got to understand, he only had 4 years. He knew they were going to steal 2020, especially after they released the virus, and then he knew the vaccines were coming. Right, there were already patents for it. He knew their plans. So what do? You get the military, and he assigned the military to be in charge of providing the vaccines, right? Developing the vaccines. And instead, what happened? Fauci jumped forward with all these non-approved experimental vaccines, and that was their plan originally anyways, but he forced them to do it about 5 years early. That's Operation Warp Speed. He forced them to produce their bioweapon about 5 years early. Again, they were going to use it for the to take our rights away, lock us down, and then when we were begging for the vaccine to get the max amount of kill effect, they'd give it to as many people as possible. You don't understand. We're under attack. We've been at war. We're still under attack.
I agree. I think communist China is to blame for all that.
There's a lot of people to blame for it, but most of it's internal because the true damage came internally.
My other thing with former President Trump is, all of us here were in the service, right? And when we fail at something, like, we take ownership of that failure. If we're at the helm and the shit goes downhill, almost at any level, if a Lance Corporal loses his freaking MVGs, who do they go to? Well, they go to his freaking team leader. Hey, did you inspect that your Lance Corporal's fucking MVGs were dummy cored to his body? Right? The team leader fucks up. Then they go to the squad leader. Hey, squad leader, did you ensure that every team in your squad had their freaking shit dummy corded? Then it goes all the way up to the top, right? And then who ends up getting fried at the very highest levels within that company? Somebody's getting shit thrown on them. But I have yet to see President Trump ever stand before the American people and say, you know what? I dropped the ball on this problem. Whatever it was. I dropped the ball on this, and I own it. I've never seen that guy do that. And again, I respect former President Trump, and I liked a lot of stuff he did, but I've never seen him take ownership. And don't get me wrong, he is leaps and bounds ahead of.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you an honest question, though. When's the last time you heard one of his speeches?
Trump's?
Yeah, he just did one, right?
I haven't seen his latest one, but I've seen many of them. Yeah,
I know. My point is, you're not a Trump supporter, but you're not a Trump hater either.
Oh no. Yeah, if he's the nominee, I am absolutely voting for him. I am just saying that I think we can do better, and we're at a time right now where we have the opportunity to select better.
Well, as an American republic, the republic, we really don't have a choice. If you get down to it, because the Democrats, you see how they vote, you see what they're showing you their true colors because they think they have nothing to fear. They've been caught. They just don't know they've been caught. Nothing can stop what's coming, but it's gonna keep coming. The pain's gonna keep happening. Every time you see the impeachments, the hearings, the truth coming out, the more of the plan comes out, and then when the true plan comes out, people are gonna be so shocked and disgusted that there's going to be no place to hide for them.
Well, it looks like this year, the next election, though, there's possibly going to be 3 choices. Now, y'all see where RFK, he said, since the Democrats have been killing me from the side and trying to shut me down and everything, then he said he's going to run as an independent.
Yeah, I saw that. Les, what do you got, man?
Trump's got his failings. Tell me the one out there that's better. I'd like to see Larry Elders do it, but to be honest, he can't even make the debate stage, so he's not an option. Vivek's saying some cool stuff, but I don't think he's got the traction to do it. If there's anybody in the race right now, it's Trump. It is what it is. You just have to accept it. I mean, when it comes down to it, there'll be a race. It'll be Trump, Biden again, and I'm not voting for Biden. Therefore, it leaves me Trump. It's the dichotomy of our system.
No, I don't think it's going to be Biden. He won't make it. I don't think till March, if that, because the way the House is right now, you see this delay going on. They kick Kevin McCarthy out the max. Why is it always the max? McDaniels, McConnell, McCarthy, McHenry, McCabe, McCain, McCaster.
Hold on now.
Yeah, I'm just saying, hey, there seems to be a whole lot of Macs out there that just don't like or Trump haters. But you see the array of enemies we have because clear lines are being drawn, whether you like to admit it or not. If you don't see Trump as, if you don't, most Republicans, or true conservatives, will see Trump as the only option, just like you said. Trump is the only option because we need the full weight of the people. It's not about Trump. It's about we, the people. He said it many times. It's not about me. I'm just in the way. They're after you. And they are.
The thing is with Trump, like I've known a lot of dudes and who are like Republican and like they are turned off by Trump. The left absolutely hates him. And then it's independents that we need to help swing the pendulum to our side, right? And it's like he's got so many negatives. I just don't see how we can win with him at this time.
Well, I see it differently. I see it.
Sorry, you've been saying about propaganda and false flag. I mean, they've just been beating the shit out of this guy for so long, making, even if that's not legitimately reasons for dudes to hate President Trump. I mean, they have done a fucking good job at it.
And, right, the smear campaign, right? That's what they do.
I mean, they want people to vote with their emotions, and they can fucking stir that pot up with just saying Trump. I mean, just saying his name makes a lot of people's heads fucking explode.
Yeah, DTS, or TDS, the Trump derangement syndrome. But if you go back to 2015, it wasn't just Trump they spied on. They spied on Cruz. They spied on a few others too, and they spied on Nunes, and they spied on Nunes' staff. We're talking about the FBI and Clinton trying to get dirt so they could smear, right? Their smear campaign with any means necessary. They tried spy inserts into the campaign. Those got identified. If you follow all these investigations that came out as a result of what happened at the beginning of the Trump campaign, Russia, you find that the FBI, the entire 7th floor ended up being cleaned out. I mean, I'll show you that. They all ended up getting fired. I don't even think any of them were reassigned. I think they were all fired. So you see the entire headquarters of the FBI got emptied out in 2017. When Trump went in, he went in hard. But of course, the media didn't report it. When he cleaned that nest out, it brought up new Bubbas, new at the job, people you don't know if you can trust or not. So you have to play this DC game of who's my friend, who's my foe, who's my ally, who can I trust? So that's where the American people are at right now. Who can we trust? And right now, most people that pay attention can see right away. You see the rhinos like DeSantis, who backed DeSantis. You see the Bush regime trying to stay alive. You saw the Cheney regime start trying to stay alive. You see it everywhere. You saw Christie up in I don't even want to say it, up in New Jersey, that he's all the rhinos are coming out because he set the dogs loose, meaning Donald Trump. He's trying to oust corruption in our government with the help of individuals, patriots. Sorry.
Here's a good question from the chat that's going by at breakneck speed and shit. What do you guys think about RFK Jr.? Will he hurt? Oh, where'd he go? Will he hurt the Republicans more or the Democrats more in the general election if he does, in fact, go with a third party? Is he going to take votes away from the Dems, or is he going to take votes away from the Republican, and then we get like we did back with Ross?
So here, I'm going to throw this out there, and I want to hear your guys' opinion on this. So from my perspective, the Democrats are always lockstep, man. It doesn't matter what it is, right? If they bring a bill to the floor or in any house, like they are lockstep voting, and they almost never have anybody, step outside the reservation. So when I see somebody like RFK come into the picture, man, it seems like he pulls some of the kind of like leaning center Democrats to independents. And I almost think he might hurt us on this. because it's like if you look at how like Trump broke the blue wall, right? Those people were like center leaning left, and somebody like RFK could pull them into his camp, and then it's like we're we're having issues there because those are the people that potentially could have been turned off so much by Biden that they would have voted Republican.
What about you, Les?
Hard to say. I mean, I think right now RFK will take that Democrat that just can't vote for Biden, and that's by the numbers he had till he went independent. He was pulling pretty solid in the mid to high teens. So I think it'll do more damage to the Democrats than the Republicans. If you're a Republican right now, half the vote is going to Trump, and RFK is not offering you anything you can't get from another member of the Republican Party.
Logan, you got anything? No. All right. Hey, I tell you what, guys, we got less than looks like we got like 14 mics left. So let's just go around the horn and finish this off. You guys good with that? All right, Will, you got the con.
Sounds like a plan.
Well, hey, thanks for having me. I know when to stay out of a conversation when I don't have no business being there, but it was good to listen to a good, healthy debate. And again, that's what makes this these streams so good is we can get both sides, three sides, a whole bunch of people, and we can have a civil conversation on it. I don't have nothing with no YouTube channels or anything. Just finished up out there with Bravo Country, had a good time, or Bravo Company with One Shepherd. I'm gonna try to dip my hat in there and put a video out. I'll be talking with Brent and Les on that, but it was good to be out here, guys. Good discussion, and the chats were definitely on point tonight.
All right. Well, I just last Friday put up my video from One Shepherd's Bravo Company spring semester. And this Friday, the next video in the series coming out covers the STX. And then hopefully right after that, I'll get the FTX video out so you can get some One Shepherd goodness going. And after that, I've got a whole bunch of good gear tests and other stuff that I hope you all find real interesting.
Well, thank you, Brett, for inviting me. And Logan, thanks for the discussion. I mean, I never met you, but I appreciate it. Again, that last question was a doozy. Democrats are going to lose. Democrat Party's going away. People are going to see the crimes. They're going to see the uniparty for what it is. The rhinos are going away. You're going to see the people unify. That's going to happen. Nothing is stopping now. People see through the bullshit. It's happening. People are waking up. And I hope I can wake a few people up along the way to the real enemy, which is not other nations. These criminals. Point blank. Anybody that wants children dead, there's no mercy for that. Take care.
Sorry, Major. It was a good discussion. Thanks for coming on. Brent, Les, Will, thanks for everything. Yeah, I think we just need to focus on our own sphere of leadership within our own communities and stop looking for leadership in other places when we have leadership within ourselves and we can start making decisions on our own. And that's really where our Constitution comes from. And we need to take a look at these conflicts and how they're all linked together, look at the facts, look at the factions, and make our own strategic decisions on like which side that we should be on based on that actual information. Don't get caught up in two-party politics. Don't get caught up in international syndicates of people. There's always going to be those. And there are always going to be seditious subversion, like they're going to find traitors within us and try to influence our politics and everything else. That's why we need to have our own strong base within our own communities and our own families. I think we need to take a look at the next couple of weeks. They're going to be pretty profound if the the Israelis do enter Gaza, there's going to be a lot more problems. Things could escalate. And I wish luck to the unnamed troops that are on their way there, 2,000 of them. And I hope that all my friends in those units will do well and keep U.S. interests safe. And that's all I care about. And I want to give a shout out to the medics of the International Legion and Spartan Battalion and other people in Ukraine right now. Thanks.
All right, guys, this has been an interesting stream. I don't think I've ever had such back and forth between two individuals before, and it was pretty entertaining. So there was like a good hour block where I think the three of us, Will, Les, and I, were just spectators watching Logan and good old Arch go back and forth. So it was good stuff. I always like seeing some new things from time to time. I used to have a friend of mine that I used to work with that I knew was a left winger. And I brought him on a few times, and some people appreciated him being on, and other people were like, "If you keep bringing that freaking leftist on, I'll leave your channel." So it is what it is, guys. There's alternate and different perspectives out there. I think the key thing is we're all Americans, and there's definitely some fucking common ground. So as far as my channel is concerned, I don't have too many things in the works right now. I just released a video over an experimental Marine Corps body armor that was designed during the Vietnam War. If you haven't seen that, be sure to go check that out. YouTube's really kicking me in the nuts right now, as in terms of like the algorithm. It's random, right? So you like stuff goes up, you do really great, and then they just tank you. So for a channel that's got 600,000 plus subscribers to have videos that are only getting 5,000-6,000 views each is a big kick in the balls. But that's what's going on right now. So I haven't had that motivation to get out there and do any filming recently because of that, and hopefully that changes soon and I can get some stuff going down the pipe. But regardless, guys, every week we at least try to have one of these streams. And as always, I appreciate all my guests coming on tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Does anybody have any saved rounds? Nobody? All right.
Follow me on Instagram.
Oh, yeah. What's your screen name again?
Ghost of Sashimi, but the eyes are ones. I posted it down below.
Good deal. And then, Will, you got a YouTube channel?
Just says 308762. Like I said, I'm breaking that ice coming up soon.
All right. And then you guys all know where to find Pegasus Test. And then Arch, do you have any social media out there where you put out content?
Yeah, I do. You can find me with L_E_Archibald, my last name, at Truth Social and also at Getter. I was on Twitter, but I am permanently banned, and I think I'm very filtered on range on Getter. Truth, I'm still trying to figure out. So,
are you still banned on Twitter, even with Elon Musk taking over?
Permanent suspension.
Oh man.
Yep.
Damn.
Yeah, they don't even give me a reason.
Wow.
They won't even give me a reason. Just the way it works.
All right,
again,
guys.
You understand the warfare, what's going on. They don't want the voices out there. That's why I'm surprised your stream wasn't shut down, because they don't want people talking about this stuff. But something's changed in the last few months, hasn't it? Think about it. What's different? You're able to see the censorship and everything else. So, thank you.
All right, guys. Have a good night.